All right, guys, good morning. I'm sure that you're enjoying the SUSECON conference so far. How many of you have HANA running on your own environment or have worked with the customers? Quite few. And how many of those instances are running in Azure? Oh, we need to increase this number. All right, that's fun part. So we have a lot of customer and partner stories that we eventually learned over 2.5 years of the time. And the idea of this session is to share those learnings and experiences with you. Not necessarily we are right at the perfect age. We are still learning, improving, and then sharing the information. So with that, let me introduce myself. I am Sachin Ghorpade, and I'm the cloud solution architect for SAP. I'm the part of the organization called PEAT, Partner Enterprise Architect Team. You might be surprised that why I'm showing my title as Senior Program Manager here. It's because I was part of the HANA Large Instances Product Engineering team until the few weeks before, and I had submitted this session on February. That's why it is static there. All right. So what we are going to talk about, we are going to understand. Okay. So let's see the agenda first. We're going to talk about SAP on Azure. What are the options we have for SAP? What are the options we have for HANA? What are the possibilities we have? So let's explore it together. And then we'll know that even though you have such a powerful engine from SAP like HANA, which is an in-memory database, on the other side you also have such a powerful machines that gives you such a huge compute and memory power. Still you can't get better return on your investment or better performance on your HANA system unless and until you do some kind of a tweaking and tuning. So we're going to see that what does that tuning means. And before you do tuning, essentially, you would want to prepare a perfect master image, or let's call it a golden image, right? And that golden image, you would take it to all different environments and systems. So we'll understand that how to make that golden image, what ingredients goes into to that image when you bake that specific image. We'll also talk about the high availability. We'll talk about the higher steps. We are not going to go into the detailed steps, but at least it will give you a good starting point to focus how to start the high availability and disaster recovery perspective. And then we'll leave with the few learnings that we had in a summarized manner. So again, we have about an hour for this session. Please feel free to interrupt, stop, or give your feedback if you have anything. Obviously, due to the time constraint, we cannot discuss each and every point. We can certainly take it outside of this conference room after 12:30. Again, the disclaimer, this information on the slides are as of February 2019. So I recommend all the time to look for the latest and greatest information to find out the latest news. All right. So let's talk about what is the biggest dilemma that the most customers have, the most SAP customers have. There are two things going on in the SAP world or in the SAP customers world right now. They do have a two parallel track and they are all running on the faster speed. The number one is that all the customers wants to move to HANA, or if not all, at least most of the customer wants to move to HANA. And the reason behind that is SAP have a statement out that, okay, by 2025, HANA is my platform. So customers are really looking to migrate. And you all know, whosoever is from the SAP basis background specifically, they know that these migration, this conversion takes really long time, sometimes 2-3 years as well, right? So customer at least already have migrated, or at least they started the conversation that, hey, I want to migrate to HANA now. So that's the track number one, which is pressurizing customer. The track number two for the customers is, hey, look, everyone is moving to Azure, or most of my neighbors have moved to Azure or some kind of a cloud. I also need to move to a cloud. Then the question comes is that, okay, now do I have a two track, each track takes its own time and lot of efforts, why not to club those track together? Meaning, if you want to move to cloud, let's do the HANA migration together, so that then your stress test, your performance test, and those kind of efforts are minimized. You can do it in a one shot. Though one learning or one suggestion that we have is that whatever there are biggest cloud, there's Amazon cloud, there's Google cloud, there's Microsoft cloud, right? There are so many other options, and we'll talk about that what you really look for from the cloud provider perspective before you really choose it. But the idea is that whatever cloud provider you choose, just ensure that you choose one specific cloud provider. You don't want to have your hybrid cloud provider, meaning something running on Amazon, something running on Azure, something running on Google, something running on IBM. It's gonna make your life miserable, because you're gonna have literally, because you need to train your operations team, you need to have your processes defined, and each and every and managing all this different cloud vendors, right? So choose your choice of cloud provider and stick to it, right? Then obvious question comes is that, okay, now there are so many cloud providers. How do I really choose and how do I really determine which cloud provider is best for me, right? This is like the very important conversation is this time, because it's like a one-way street. You just go and you start deploying, and then essentially you are, you know, you got your home there in that cloud. You just can't move, or you just don't want to move from one cloud to another so often, right? So, excuse me. So, if you want to really move your mission critical environment like SAP or HANA, your S4 HANA, these are the few basic factors, right? These are the few basic factors that you want to evaluate from the cloud vendor perspective, right? The number one is your HANA and new application certification. There are various ways you can deploy your SAP. And SAP could provide you specifically from the HANA perspective a certified model or a TDI model, right? You want to see that your cloud providers, how many different kind of SKUs that cloud provider has. It shouldn't happen that, okay, some SKU or your current sizing requirement is fulfilled today, but then you have a growth going forward in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year down the line, and cloud provider does not have a sufficient SKU. So you want to really understand that how many SKUs are really certified, right? That's kind of a very important thing. The second thing is that security and compliance requirement. Every organization has security and compliance requirements, distinguishedly. Maybe Germany has specific thing for GDPR, right? So you want to really look for your country specific requirement, your organization specific requirement, and ensure that that cloud provider meets it. And if not, then what is their roadmap for those security requirements coming in? Because you also have like 6 to 12 months of downtime time to move to your Azure. So you want to ensure that you are aligned with that roadmap. You also want to understand business continuity. What kind of business continuity it provides. I'm running my mission critical environment. I just can't rely that you are saying that, okay, I'm running on Azure or I'm running on cloud and you will be safe. No, I want to ensure that if that particular cloud location goes down for whatever reason, ultimately at the end it is some data center they are running the infrastructure, right? You want to ensure that when that specific infrastructure is down, your business is continued, right? So you want to understand, and you also want to understand, you also have a conversation about recovery time objective, recovery point objective at this time. It doesn't mean that, okay, yes, I have a business continuity, but what it really translate in terms of your business, right? Can you really correlate your business requirement to their RTO and RPO timeline? So that's important to have the conversation. Also want to have the cloud economics conversation. You also want to look for that, okay, now when you run your SAP environment, you know, there are thousands of different interfaces, there are hundreds of different other SAP connectors, there are web services, there are sales tax engine, literally like it's like the ecosystem of that system. SAP itself really can't run generally, right? In the organization you will have different of interfaces. You also want to look for those interfaces, whether my SAP and non-SAP workload, what kind of workload that particular cloud provider can sustain. Then you want to also look for your agility, innovation, and agile IT operations, what kind of agility your cloud provider provides into the space. You also want to look for that, okay, if I'm bringing my, let's say, 20 terabyte, which is so common nowadays with the HANA databases, if you are bringing such a heavy workload, yes, your cloud provider right now has that capability, but what is their roadmap to go and bring the more and more bigger sizes, so that when you grow your workload, you don't suffer from these SKU limitations, right? So you want to consider that. So these are the technical requirements that we talked about. There are some other fundamental non-technical requirements as well when you want to talk to your cloud provider. The number one in that is relationship with SAP. It's very important. The reason is that if your cloud provider has a very close relationship, meaning that in the background they are already working together, when SAP is launching something, that means that cloud provider is already ready with the solution, and vice versa. You also want to understand that what kind of enterprise DNA your cloud provider has. They must understand downtime mean for SAP system. They must understand that if the SAP system is down, meaning a factory could itself be down in some scenario. So they need to understand that the impact and enterprise level support scenario. Cloud leadership, you also want to look for the Gartner report to see that which cloud provider is where, right, and how they are progressing, right, because you are doing a lot of investment, you want to ensure that you choose the right one. And then the SI ecosystem. In any SAP new implementation called greenfield or a brownfield implementation, brownfield work like the migration or upgrade, you take the help of service implementation provider. You want to ensure that you have a great ecosystem, not the monopoly of one or two SI providers, but there are general SI providers available for you that could help you migrate your workload. So these are the few fundamental things that you look when you want to migrate your workload to the cloud of your choice. So we talked about the cloud in general. Now since I'm Microsoft, I'm taking you to the journey of Microsoft Azure Cloud running HANA with SUSE on the Microsoft Azure infrastructure. All right. So when we talk about the cloud infrastructure in Azure, especially from the compute perspective, there are three pillars obviously, right, the cloud, compute, storage and networking. So we are talking about the compute here. So in the compute infrastructure perspective, when you look into the Azure, there are two pillars, right. One pillar is called commonly known as VM, which is the virtual machine, right, which is also called the on-demand, meaning you go to portal or you use Azure Resource Manager or you use CLI and you just basically provide parameters, boom, submit request, and within few minutes you have your infrastructure ready. That's the virtual machine. On the other side, which is getting very popular nowadays, the service we started about 3 years ago called the HANA Large Instances. That's a bare metal workload, meaning you are not sharing your compute workload with anyone else. It's a dedicated physical machine in the back end which is assigned to you, and you can have your biggest workload running there. Now, since you have two different kind of a workload types available, let's understand that what these different types and their offerings are. So if we talk from the virtual machine perspective, it's the on-demand infrastructure. On-demanding means you could go to the portal anytime, spin it up, spin it down, scale down, and play with it whatever based out of your workload requirement. So that's on-demand. You also have right now the SKUs available up to 4 terabyte. The M series is available with the 4 terabyte memory availability. And then we also have the 12 terabyte announced. So the last Sapphire 2018, Microsoft announced the 12 terabyte. So stay tuned. You should be seeing more than 4 terabyte virtual machine in near month as well. If we talk from the SLA perspective, on the single virtual machine, you could get up to 99.99 uptime SLA. We talk to customers and some customers say that, hey, I do just have a requirement of 98% on my non-production environment. Then probably just a single machine could provide them the whole requirement. They don't have to even worry about the complexity of HA there, right? But there are customers who say, hey, no, I want at least 99.95% availability. Then you have an option of running the high availability, and then it allows you 99.95% of uptime SLA. These machines also have per second billing, so you can be so creative, like Friday evening 6 p.m. you can snooze them and you can do it automatically, and then Monday morning 8 a.m. the machines comes up automatically, so you are really saving. Or you say, oh, lot of my user workload is US based, that too very specific to, let's say, West Coast. Then I'm just going to start my machine on 8 a.m. PST or PT, and then 6 p.m. PT, I'm just going to shut them. So you can be more creative in an automated manner. in the IT, I worked in IT as well, Microsoft IT as well. They became really super innovative here. What they did is they developed a phone app. So if you are a super user, they're just going to shut down the machine, non-production machines all over the weekend. But since we have a global presence, somewhere wants those machines to be available. So they can just simply go to that app. It's a power app basically. They just click, okay, start my, for example, my SIT machine for ERP, and then machine gets started for next 4 hours, and then it automatically shuts down over the weekend. So that way you don't need to worry about, okay, some basis team member have to wake up and fulfill that request, right? You can be more innovative. Then you also want to look for very important perspective when running your workload is HANA certified. There are two ways, like we discussed, SAP certified and TDI. When you run the SAP certified machines, you get peace of mind. Okay, my workload is gonna be, has been certified, and I can peacefully run my HANA workload. So that's from the VM perspective. If we talk from the bare metal perspective or the HANA large instances perspective, these are the purposeful built machine only for the HANA workload. So you just can't run your SQL or Oracle workload as of now. You can only run the HANA workload there. The machines are very powerful, so they can go up to scale up to 24 terabyte and scale out up to 120 terabyte. So they're massive machines, right? And we do have customers, by the way. I think maybe 3 years, 5 years, but down the line, when we talk about 10 terabyte or 12 terabyte, people used to think, oh my gosh, this is such a big database. We already have customers who are looking for 60 terabyte, 80 terabyte, 100 terabytes. So you need to have such a massive offering. And then there are customers, if you see 99.95, it was still not sufficient for them. They say, oh no, I want more. So then these provides you 99.99, which is approximately 54 minutes a year. And then these are again the SAP certified. You can also go with the TDI model as well. All right. So let's see that on the on-demand infrastructure. Let's double click on. So I'm just giving you the example of M series, which is latest on the series, but you have other options like DS and GS5 and others. In the M series, these are the hyper-threaded machines, and these are running on your Haswell processor. The latency is very interesting here. So as you know that since you are writing and reading lots of data, it's very important that your latency from your compute unit to your storage is reduced. So these are the units that could provide you less than a millisecond storage latency. And then it's available in more than 10 regions, and of course, like we discussed, you can do the deployment in minutes. On the purposeful built hardware, we start this SKU ranging from 768 gigabyte, a very tiny machine with 72 cores. Some people want to run their SAP application workload also, by the way, other than the HANA here. And then it goes all the way up to 960 core, which is a 20 terabyte. But then you say, oh, you said 24 terabyte is the biggest one. Why 20 terabyte? Then you also have the other machines, which is the 768 CPU that goes all the way up to 24 terabyte. So you have the multiple options available. It supports all the possible SAP's topology, like your single node, HSR with DR, scale out, standby. All the possible topologies are supported here. They have the latest CPU infrastructure as well. It is running on the Broadwell, and the newer technologies are coming out. It's available in 8 regions right now, 2 in US, 2 in Europe, 2 in Australia, and 2 in Japan, and more regions to come out soon. All right, so we talked a lot about different SKUs. Now people would easily say, okay, now help me understand which SKU is better for me. Sometimes you have overlapping of those SKUs. How do I really determine which specific SKU is better for me? Then there could be various criteria to assess that, but I think I categorize them into top 4 categories. Number 1 is your performance. The customers who are like, hey, I do have lots of workload going on, I need things to process very quickly. That means they are looking for performance. Performance gets translated easily to your CPU and memory requirements. Meaning the more in memory and more CPU you need, obviously you are going to pay more pricing here, right? So that's why there is a performance and pricing equation. The second thing you want to consider is your analytical processing OLAP versus OLTP or transactional processing workload. It doesn't mean that you have a specific SKU which is certified for HANA, meaning you can run your OLTP or OLAP workload there. There are specific SKUs which are only certified for TP workload or AP workload. You want to really focus and ensure that you choose the right specific SKU for them. Then the other consideration criteria could be certified versus TDI v5, meaning the machines that Microsoft has worked in the background have workload running, satisfied all the KPIs from SAP and got the stamp from SAP. Those are the certified machines. You can peacefully take, run, don't worry about it. The second scenario could also be that, hey, I wanna assess my workload on and I wanna do them on the TDI, tailored data integration manner. SAP allows you, and Microsoft offers you those SKUs as well. You can run your workload, satisfy SAP's requirement, and then you can peacefully then again go as a semi-certified machine for your workload. The fourth criteria that I would put here is the production versus non-production workload. We have seen customers who say, okay, for production obviously I'm going to go for the certified one, but for non-production I don't care about the support and SLA requirement. Maybe a cost is a factor for me, I'm just going to consider my non-production workload, right? So, or maybe your non-production systems are lower, you don't want such a high availability, you don't want such a high uptime, then you can also consider the lower SKUs as compared to the production one. So, these are the few criteria that you would put into the consideration when you are planning for the SKUs for the cloud. All right. Now we understand, yes, we want to run our HANA workload. We understood that the specific cloud is of my choice. Even though you have such a powerful machine and you have such a powerful application database engine, HANA, the most important thing still remain is the operating system, because that's where your whole equation is going to run. And then that means you need a perfect image for that, right? But before you decide, hey, I want to use specific image for this particular workload, there are few considerations you need to put. And the considerations are, consideration number one is, what operating system is supported for HANA? So you know that SUSE, if you talk from the SUSE's perspective, you have SUSE 12, SP1, SP2, SP3, and then SP4 probably came out. SLES 15 is also there. They're all for HANA, but it depends that which specific HANA version you are running, which specific HANA SPS version you are running, and even a specific revision that you are running, right? So let's take an example for SLES 15. If you're talking for the HANA 2, which is Intel based environment here, then you can only run HANA 2 SPS 03 revision 34 and newer on the SLES 15. So most of the customers, if they do have, for example, HANA 1 running, they can run the HANA 1 if they are running HANA 1 SPS 12 revision 122 and newer. So this basically chart that you wanna assess and determine, and this will reveal into or convert into two output. Number one is that you will change either your operating system decision, or you will take the second track, hey, I wanna upgrade my HANA version so that I can specifically go to a specific operating system. And this is again information coming from the SAP notes in the appendix. Always check, because this information is dynamic. All right. The second important consideration when you want to run HANA and you have chosen your operating system, you want to ensure that the SKUs that you are looking is again the certified one, or supported, at least supported for HANA. There are four series, I would say, total of 25 plus SKUs. DS1, DS14 V2, which is kind of the small machine, good for business one kind of a solution. You have GS5, then you have M series. People are using M series over GS5 because of the cost consideration, and then there are other advantage like the log accelerator, right? or sorry, the write accelerator, that kind of feature advantage you could take on the MCT. So it's most popular for the HANA nowadays. And then you have S series, which is also known as the HANA large instances that we saw in the previous slide. You can always go and check the SAP's hardware directory that has always the latest and greatest information. It tells you which SKU it is supported, which operating system it is supported, which workload it is supported, does it support scale out, does it support high availability. So all that kind of information you want to check before you really decide on a specific workload. The third consideration comes is that, okay, now I understand the image, but which images are offered in Azure, right? You just can't have your own image, bring in and then run it, right? So from the VM perspective, on-demand infrastructure perspective, you have SUSE 12, SP2, 3 and 4, and then SUSE 15 available. You get two models. One is called the bring your own subscription or bring your own licenses. So you can bring your own license, your own support model and activate it. You can also go with the pay as you go option. When you go with the pay as you go option, by default you get the priority support, and we'll talk about a support model in a minute. So you get that model default. If you want to go and check that, hey look, I want to understand that which images are available, you can always run this CLI command, azvm image list, and then it would give you basically all the images available. One important factor to consider here when you are looking for the images, always look the image which has for SAP. So those are the images that the SUSE have already tuned for SAP. It doesn't mean that it has already 100% tuning. We are going to talk about additional tuning in few minutes, but at least that gives you like the image which SUSE is providing you for the SAP perspective. And then you also have bring your own license for HANA large instances. You have only two images right now, SUSE 12, SP2 and SP3. SP4 and /15 should be out soon. One more point I want to talk. Okay, so if you go to SUSE's site and you say that there is an image called /for SAP, it doesn't mean generally that the image is for HANA as well. When I talked to my SUSE colleague, he explained to me that generally the HANA certification takes 3 to 6 months more than the SAP's its own timeline. So then your best friend to find out the information is SAP node, the OSS node. That gives you the very clear information, certified information from SAP. All right. The next consideration for you to make the decision on the operating system side is also the support plan. You want to consider both the support plan. I'm talking from the infrastructure perspective. One from the SUSE, second from the Microsoft side. You can also talk about the support plan from SAP, but that's more of a SAP application layer in general. You need to consider priority support, right? Because it gives you 24/7 support model for you. You are running mission critical environment. You don't want to compromise with your uptime, then the priority is an option. You also look for the Microsoft also, you have basic, development, standard, premier and ARR support. Our recommendation for mission critical workload is premier and Azure rapid response for our VLI kind of a SKU. And this information depends, like one would probably say, okay, I'm going to give you dedicated account manager, you can call them and all that kind of a thing. All right, it's time to bake the image now, right? So let's build the image, let's build the golden image. So if I want to build the golden image, I need three major ingredients. One is the kernel. Let's say, okay, every image has kernel, what is so fun about it, right? The requirement here is that when you talk to SAP and read their documentation, depending upon the HANA releases, there could be a specific minimum level of kernel requirement. So that's where very important that you choose a specific kernel. What are the packages you want to include? You don't want to overload your golden image saying, oh, include this one, this one, this one, this one as well, right? No, because then you have to manage them, you have to patch them. You want to include a very specific set of packages there. And then you also want to consider the drivers, the environment like the large instances wherein it's running on the bare metal. It's very important that you consider the appropriate driver, Ethernet drivers, your firmware drivers and all. At least the good thing is that Microsoft takes care for you in the HANA large instances, but just in case if you are looking to make your own maybe environment and then try to make your image, then drivers are the important one. Based out of that, you make an image, you do your testing, you again do further tuning, install, test it, and it's kind of a repeatable process. Now, if you see, I was using the word specific kernel, specific drivers, specific packages. Like, from where this specific information comes? How do I really get the authentic information at this time, right? So, the information comes out from the 4 resources, and all the four are equally important. If you are not including any of them, then we are not making the perfect image. The first information comes from the SAP. SAP has their OSS notes, they do have their SAP install guide, and unfortunately it takes time. Each installation guide could be 200 pages. So please invest your weekend if you really want to do that, because in office hours you are not going to do that. So you look for, you read through it, a specific version, and figure out that information for you. Then you also go to SUSE, you have their configuration guide, they do have their tuning guides, you read them and find out the information. You also go to Microsoft in the IAS platform, docs.microsoft.com, and figure out what is the specific version or information required from Microsoft side for the operating system. You also go to a hardware vendor of a specific platform to determine the driver version. So these all 4 information, once you do it, then you basically craft out or carve out your specification, and then you start building the image. All this are very important, and this is, trust me, this is where building the image does not take long. Finding out the right information from the right places, because if you just misunderstood the information or apply it wrongly, then all your efforts are basically useless. So it's very important that we spend lot of time, quality time into this exercise. Again, these are the key packages that if you go to SUSE's tuning guide or the configuration guide, they will say, okay, these are the set of packages that you wanna include. Again, you don't want to include all the packages unless and until it's required, and you understand the package, what this particular package is doing, right? And also understand the dependency before really including or excluding a specific package. There is no specific meaning if you are saying that why this particular package is showing me big or the small, it's just for looking nice or fancy perspective. All are same probably. But if you want to talk about few specific, for example, GTK is for your graphical perspective, HANA SR is for your to support your HANA system replication and all. So you want to really review them and include the specific version of the package there. So far so good? No questions? Okay. Okay, so now we have understood the image, we have our specification ready, we have built the image, and I'm still not getting probably the best out of it. That means I still miss some tuning, right? So let's tune it then. So there are numerous tuning, and by no means it is a complete list, no means. These are the few that we explored and implemented. There is, I'm pretty sure there is other dozen left out, and then we learn it, implement it, and prepare our new golden image, right? So configuring the C state, which is related to lower latency, we are going to talk about each and every scenario in detail in few minutes. You also turn off your NUMA balancing. You have to disable the transparent huge pages. You enable the bias EPB. You do the MTU setting, you set the specific transmission unit setting. You enable your time settings in the network time protocol server. You have your SMT subscription management server enabled. You also want to disable EDAC, error detection and correction module. And then finally, the SAP tune. Just to call it out, majority of these settings are included in the SAP tune, but not all. So if you apply that, just revisit and review that, okay, all your settings are included there. Let's drill down then. The power management. If you go and do the power management documentation, there are basically 3 pillars it is talking about. The C state, which is an operating state, the P state, which is a performance state, and T state, which is a throttling state. Throttling to process, to throttle the processor clock for lower frequency. For P state to operate any P state, you must be in the C0 state. But these two, I didn't find any SAP documentation talking about a lot about this. The most they talk about the C state. So now what is the C state is? So when you run any data center or even in the specific server, you know that the number one cost is the power, and your power will be consumed more if your CPU is just processing. You all know that not necessarily all the time CPU is processing. Sometimes it does not have any work to do, right? So that means CPU is idling. Now what you could also do in the operating system level is that, okay, when CPU is idle, let me give him a rest so that I save power. Now the question comes is that how much of a rest I want to give it to CPU, right? If we hear SUSE, then you have state from C0 to C3. C0 means I am always awake, and C3 means, okay, I am going to deep sleep. If something comes, then someone come, knock my door, I will do brushing and all, get my clothes ready and then serve you, right? It's going to obviously take long time to serve any request. SAP recommend to use the setting called C1, right, which is a light sleep. So that way you are basically taking the advantage of power saving, as well as now you are able to serve the request optimally as well. You can argue that, okay, why not C0? Sure, if you are okay to spend power all the time, you can decide it, but I am just going through the recommendation what SAP is giving for the HANA workload here. All right, the second thing is called the non-uniform memory access, right? So if you go to operating system like SUSE, they will have the NUMA balancing enabled to have the better access to your memory modules, right? But HANA is smart. HANA says, okay, I know NUMA. I don't need operating system you to tell me that how to use NUMA. And obviously you don't want two people to talk about the same thing, otherwise there will be confusion. So better is to disable the NUMA at the operating system level and let HANA use it, because ultimately HANA is the only application running on that specific unit. So you can disable the NUMA if you are using the scale out configuration, n+1 kind of an environment, then obviously you have to go to all the nodes individually and disable it, and it requires a reboot, by the way, so you plan it accordingly. Disable transparent huge pages. So THP, it allows the handling of multiple pages into they just make it bundle and then start communicating. That way the information gets passed soon. But then again, HANA is THP aware. It says, okay, I don't need you. So we just go ahead and disable the THP thing from the operating system level and let HANA handle the memory management on its own special manner. You also want to save your memory. At the same time, you want to ensure that your hardware is performing optimally. That's why you set the EPB to maximum performance, and that's a BIOS level setting. So any of this infrastructure like HANA large instances, the customers, since they don't have the BIOS access, you just can't do it. The SAP service management team or the Microsoft Azure service management team, when they deliver the environment to you, they have it already done for you guys. But just in case if you want to explore that on your own hardware platform. So M series and virtual environment, it may not be required because that's specific, because in the virtualized environment you have a specific hardware and then you have multiple tenants running on it. So this setting is specifically applicable for the environment like HANA large instances.
Like for M series also, it's like if you say this or C state and B state, the HANA requirement is same, right? So how do you do this?
So HANA, when you see the SAP's note, they talk about not even the SAP's note, even the SUSE's tuning guide and the configuration guide. They have a specific scenario. They say okay, apply this setting for the bare metal environment. Apply this setting for the virtualized environment. Apply this settings for the IBM environment. Apply this setting for the Intel environment. So that's why when you do the specification, I'm giving you in general overview here, but when you go do the specific specification for your image, you want to really focus on the specific environment that you are building.
What I'm trying to understand is that for the M series versus S series, will that means that because you cannot do C state and E state, it will impact our HANA performance?
Not necessarily, because there is something other setting that SAP is giving you to tune that on specific image.
What settings are those? Because I was trying to find out.
Yeah, I can give you the OSS note number after this session. Yeah. And again, since you started this topic, thought came in my mind. Again, when you talk from the image perspective, the image for the VM and the image for the bare metal S series, they are not same. OS image, they are not same. So you would always find some differences there. Just to call it out here. All right. Then we talk about the maximum transmission unit. So when the HANA machine has to talk to some other HANA machine or non-HANA machine, it has to transfer the data in terms of an MTU. There are different interfaces even on the VM side. So if you hear from SAP perspective, they say, oh, I do need a separate interface for client, separate interface storage, separate interface node to node, backup separate. There's a detailed interface design document. What is important here is that to consider the interface which is accessing your client. So if you are considering that, then your MTU setting for your client, as well as for if any HSR that you are doing it for the disaster recovery purpose, which is on the other region, you want to set this to MTU. If you don't set it to MTU, especially for the DR environment, it does not synchronize and it gives you a weird error. Honestly, it took us like 5 to 6 days to figure out that why the DR synchronization is not happening. And error was not clear that, hey, do you have the MTU problem? So I think that we feel very happy when we talk about MTU, because that took a long time for us to determine. The rest of the interfaces like your node to node and all, you can still use the MTU is equal to 9000, which then you can use jumbo frame, which allows you to synchronize your data from one node to another node in a speedy manner. NTP, network time protocol. You need this because to synchronize the timing of all the systems of your SID, system environment. If you don't do it, then number one, you are going to have data inconsistency because your database is running on the different time, your application is running on the different time. And before even it creates the data inconsistency, SAP will start throwing you a short dump called ZDate large time difference. So it's a good indication that you have not set up the NTP in your environment.
Question on that, there's at least 3 different ways of setting into getting time. Is there a recommendation on the resolution, time resolution that you need?
So I have seen, so I have seen the customers are using their own NTP server and then synchronizing all the time from that specific NTP server.
PD or there's a system way of doing it now, there's Chromie.
No, so they did so it's again like the NTP server they set up in the Azure environment specifically, and all the Azure and the HANA large instance environment, they just synchronize that with the NTP specific one. I have seen the customers who have also synchronizing it with some time server remotely, but I don't think that that's a good idea. The reason behind that also is that your HANA large instances, they do not have the internet connectivity directly. So you must have some kind of an NTP infrastructure available so that you can point to that NTP server and get the time synchronized. Make sense? All right. The similar thing is the SMT server, subscription management server. You want to have your servers centralized so that you can have your patching and packages and ensure that your servers are latest available. Even though Microsoft provides you the golden image, which is near perfectly baked, I'm saying near perfectly because I'm pretty sure there are certain things which we still have to discover and learn. The very number one thing that we say to the customer is that, hey, go ahead and install the latest patches and packages and the kernel, because by the time we test it, build it, it's gonna take a long time cycle, and by the time we give it to customer back, it's probably a 2 months old image already by this time. Then you have a error detection and correction module. Since most of the hardware vendors provide you the error detection and correction module capability, SUSE recommend in this case that, okay, disable it from the operating system for me. And again, this is from the HLI perspective, specifically I'm talking. And then let the hardware vendor do their own magic job for EDAC. And it also, by the way, we saw that it helps you reduce a lot of noise. So if you have the operating system level EDAC enabled, you really see a lot of noises there that, okay, something is happening, which is a false alarm. Okay, and finally, you have a SAP tune, or originally sometimes before it was also called the SAP conf. You can tune it, and then it contains most of the recommendations from SAP from the tuning perspective, but again, you want to review your settings and see that whether it's really making sense for you to all the adjustments that SAP conf did. All right, so let's talk about the high availability. The scenario I'm showing you here, we have two machines, two HANA large instances machines. You have the HANA system replication setup, and you are using the SUSE pacemaker using the iCASI based Stoneth device SBD to perform the failover. So in this diagram, if you see, the primary machine, it has its own set of storage, right? And the secondary machine has its own set of storage. It has 4 interfaces. Interface number 1 talks to your Azure in the VNet. This is where I was talking that you should set your MTU to 1500. The node number 2, it talks about node to node so that you can have HANA system replication going. Third thing is that your node to your storage so that you can talk fast to your storage. And the fourth one is your SBD device, Stoneth based device. So you perform your by the way, there is one more fifth hidden which we started offering nowadays is, let's call it interface E, which is for the backup specific perspective. We got the feedback from customer that, hey, I need a specific and dedicated interface for backup. So we started using or providing that as well now. Now, how do you set up the HANA system replication? Probably there is a detailed documentation available from the SUSE. We have a documentation on docs.microsoft.com as well. But if we talk from the very high level perspective, then these are the steps involved. The number one is that build the infrastructure like VM or HLI or network or storage for 2 machines. You need minimum 2 machines for the high availability. So you need, in the case of Azure Cloud, VM, you spin up on your own. In the case of HLI, you submit the request and Microsoft does it for you. Install the operating system. Again, you get the operating system pre-installed both with VM as well as for HLI of the request that you submit. Then you create the pacemaker cluster. So that's where you as a customer start working now. You create your pacemaker cluster. Important thing is that if you are using the pacemaker cluster for HANA, you need the HANA extension, HA extension installed. And if you remember our package list, there was something called HANA SR, system replication one, that is also you need. Then you install HANA on both the nodes, set up the HANA system replication, and then after the system replication is done, you create the HANA cluster resources. You create the cluster resources for your network, you create the profile for your HANA and system replication, and that's it. And once that is done, you can always perform the failover and failback test. You can always take the interface down, or you want to take the full node down just to see that the other node is taking over the responsibility. Simple steps. If you even don't want to do things on your own, there are a lot of templates available on GitHub. Multiple methods, whatever is familiar to you. You can use the ARM templates, so that you just basically fulfill your parameter and all the infrastructure in the sense of pacemaker and all, that's all set up for you. You can also use the Ansible templates, that's the automation platform, and you can also use the Terraform template. So if you go to GitHub / SAP HANA, you are going to find a bunch of templates there for your automation. All right, so let's see that what did we discuss today. So I'm just basically summarizing here. The key consideration here is that whenever you want to perform or build your image specification, very important thing is that you read the latest and greatest information. You also get the OS subscription so that you can set up your SMT, and you have the proper support from the SUSE side as well. You review the support offerings, which operating systems are supported, which region it is supported, and which support, for example, the priority support you want to consider. From the Microsoft side, you want to consider the Premier and the ARR, Azure Rapid Response. You also want to understand the end of support. It might be possible that, okay, the operating system that you are choosing now is available probably, but 2 years down the line is going to end the support. Generally, if I remember correctly, it's a 18-month cycle from SUSE. It's changed.
Yeah, 4.5 years now.
4.5 years now. Okay, that's great. So you want to really consider their review cycle of the end of support perspective. Now the lessons learned. Review the support plan from SUSE. For HLI, EDAC should be disabled at the operating system level. This was the hard learning for us. If you are using the bigger machine, like we talked about, people need more and more machine, but at certain time, HANA has limit. So if you are having a machine which is more than 16 socket and you enable the hyper-threading, HANA is still not going to take the advantage out of it. Then MTU client setting we talked about, set it to 1500 for your client and the DR node specifically. Otherwise, for rest of the things you can use the 9000. Review the drivers. That's unless and until you are making your own environment, leave it on Microsoft. They will take care of you in the case of Azure Cloud. Install the patches after the initial system provisioning, and that's where your SMT server provisioning is very much important. So with that, we do have these documentation link. You can go and figure out if you want to use SAP on Azure, both VM and both VM and HANA large instances. You can go to SAP on Azure, which basically takes you to docs.microsoft.com essentially. HANA large instances overview, supported scenario, high availability, and if you want to see that which SKUs are certified for me to run my HANA workload, then this is the link. So with that, that's what I had to share with you guys.
What do you think is the circumstance or the situation that would make live patching from SUSE useful in these environments? Are you familiar with the live patching?
Yes. So I think in my perspective, I will leave it up to the customers. The reason behind that is that when you plan for the patching, you want to plan in all the environment in such a way that you don't leave, for example, your development running on the new patches for a long time and production. So I will give an example of Microsoft IT. How we do is we just try to keep patching within a week time frame. What it means is that the Monday we will start the patching on our development sandbox and SIT environment, and just patch it on all day. Just take a quick downtime, patch it, and done.
So you're failing over and failing.
And then we are leaving it for 5 days to understand if there is any adverse impact. If no, then the same weekend we just basically Saturday we take the production downtime and then patch it out.
So I got a question. So I noticed in one of your early slides, and I forget what you called it, but the public cloud offering uses the Haswell processors, the large instances uses the Broadwell. How often is Microsoft, refreshing the hardware to get off of the later generation processors to onto some of the newer ones? Specifically, because in order to take advantage of TDI Phase 5, you have to be on Broadwell minimum.
Yep.
So I was just curious.
Yep. So like any other cloud provider, we also keep on working on always the next generation. If you would wait probably this week or so, you're going to see the next generation of HANA large instances we call generation 4 should be out soon. And we also need, like we said, that we are in a close collaboration with SAP. So if you know the SAP has a new feature of they call the non-volatile RAM. NVR, right? NVR, and that requires a cascade like a CPU architecture. So we work with them. I can't share much information there, but this is like one of the example wherein we closely working to ensure that number one, the technology is met. Number two, on the side from the generation perspective, from the operating system, so from the hardware vendor perspective, we are not really running behind. Because if we even at the end, when even we are running the hardware infrastructure, right, the physical hardware, it's like 3 to 5 years and then you are done. And then when you look for the next hardware from your hardware vendor provider perspective, you don't want to go to the old generation, you always look for the new. So it's like when we got the new, we offer that to the new to the customer. So it's like both the market demand as well as the the life cycle of the hardware.
Does Hyper-V take advantage of the AEP DIMMs today? I know VMware has announced that they support them. Does Microsoft also?
What is AEP?
The Apache Pass, the
Yes.
CME.
Yeah. The VM is not yet. The VM does not take that yet.
The VM doesn't
Yeah.
support it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we are deploying primary and secondary on Azure, is it only one VNet which we create?
So this is for the HANA large instances perspective. In this architecture, what you would do is you will create one VNet. That's where your SAP application layer is residing, right? Your NetWeaver layer or S4 layer or whatever you want. Then you also need a second subnet. Let's not call it a VNet. Let's call it a subnet here because it's not deployed in the Azure because it's in the colo side. And that range basically we use it for the server IP pooling. Meaning, if for example, if you give me a /24 range, which provides you roughly 250 usable IP, right? So that is the specific IP that you assign it to these blades or these physical servers. So those are the two important ranges that you provide to Microsoft. And of course, you want to ensure that they are not colliding because at the end, it's one big network for your infrastructure.
And this is assuming storage is coming directly from Azure storage manager.
Yes. Storage is provided. To you in the HANA large instances, pre-configured, pre-provisioned as per the TTI guidelines from SAP. But when you talk from the VM perspective, you as a customer, since you have the full control on the infrastructure, you choose a specific storage. And by the way, premium is the recommended one there.
And is there any extra charges from the Microsoft way when we transfer the data from one VNet to other? I was reading something about this.
So Microsoft perspective, any egress data is charged. So if you are moving out, then yes, it is charged.
Even if I'm not moving out from one VNet to other VNet?
I don't think so. So egress meaning you are leaving the Microsoft boundary, then it's charged. Within the internal, I don't think so it's charged. But again, you want to check with sales, not saying that, oh, Sachin said and don't charge me now.
It says if there are two VNets, is there any egress between two VNets? Even that's chargeable. So
Yeah, that's what I said. Please check it with the sales team. I cannot really say that confidently there. Anything with dollar, I don't feel comfortable. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you coming over and taking time. And if you still have any question, again, my email address is sachin.ghorpade @microsoft.com. My first name, last name @microsoft.com. Thank you. No, thanks a lot.